In this lesson, we are going to remember how to write equations of lines. There are three basic ways that you can write equations of lines. You can write them in slope-intercept form, point-slope form, and standard form. We're going to focus on slope-intercept and point-slope form. So let's just remember first, when we have lines that go up and to the right, they have a positive slope. When they go down and to the left, they have a negative slope. When they have a vertical slope, when it's a vertical line, they have an undefined slope, and when they are horizontal, they have zero slope. So horizontal lines, notice that they cross through the y-axis, and so they have a y equals because they have zero slope. Vertical lines cross through the x-axis, which is why they have an x equals with no slope or an undefined slope. So if I wanted to write the equations of both the vertical and the horizontal, so vertical is up and down, horizontal is side to side, that goes through the point -4, 7. If you were to look at that on a grid, -4, 7 would be back, 4 up, 7, it would be here. If I wanted the horizontal line, then it would go like this. It would cross through the y-axis, and so it would be y equals. Well, where does it cross through the y-axis? It crosses through the y-axis at 7, which is the y value, so y equals 7. If I wanted the vertical line that passes through that point, vertical is up and down, it crosses the x-axis, and it crosses the x-axis at the x-coordinate, so it would give x is equal to -4. So when you have horizontal and vertical lines, notice how they only cross one axis, and when they only have one axis, they're only going to have one letter in their formula or in their equation. So in order to write the equation of a line, you need two things. You need to know the slope, or the m, and you need to know a point that is on the line. That point could come in the form of an x-y point, or it could come in the form of a y-intercept, or b. Okay, slope-intercept form is our familiar y equals mx plus b, where m and b are going to be constants. Point slope is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1, where your x and y will be constants and your y will be constant. And then standard form, which we don't use very much, but sometimes we'll see lines in standard form, would be ax plus by is equal to c. We often start with them in that format and then change them into slope-intercept form to make them easier to graph. Okay, so just kind of as a backup, I want you to recognize that you can use a graph to write the equation of a line. If you ever get stuck, but you know how to graph a line, then that's always a really good way to do a backup. The only time it doesn't work is if you have equations of lines where the y-intercept is not a whole number. If it's a fraction, then using the graph is not as easy. So if I want to write the slope-intercept, that's y equals mx plus b, form of the equation of a line that's shown here, then we need two things. We need the slope and we need a point that's on the line. Well, the point that's on the line that is the most beneficial for me is that point right there, and that is the y-intercept. The y-intercept is 2. When you can find the y-intercept, that makes it much easier. And then we need a slope. So to find the slope, you want to find a couple of points where it crosses nicely. I want to make sure that goes up 1, back 1, 2, 3, 4, up 1, back 4. So it continues. It goes up 1 and back 4. Remember that up and to the right are positive directions. Down and to the left are negative directions. These are positive directions. Okay, so just remember that when you are doing your slope. So we have our slope is equal to rise 1 and then -4 slope. The negative can go anywhere. Okay, so don't worry about whether it can be on top, -1/4, it can be in the middle, -1/4, it can be in the denominator. And so to write the slope-intercept form, it would be y equals m, which is -1/4 x plus b. Okay, now what if I have a point and a slope? but I don't remember. I can't remember how to do everything with the formulas. Well, you can always go to a graph and try to see if it'll work. So we did this the other day. Remember that you start the graph. Here's the point where you're going to start the graph. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Put your point there because your line is going to pass through that point. And then we need a slope of 3. So your tendency is going to be to go up 3 over 1. That doesn't do any good because what I really need is, I know I have a slope of 3, but what I really need to write my y equals mx plus b equation is I need the b. So the easiest way to do it is then just to count and go down 3 to the left 1. Down 3, left, and just continue that until you end up intersecting the y-axis. That's at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's at -8. And so your y-intercept is at -8. It came out nice and pretty. And so the equation for the line that would connect these points right here would be y equals 3x minus 8. Now, you could do that, same formula, you could do that by, you could get the same equation by using the formulas, either the point slope formula or the y-intercept or the slope-intercept formula. Okay. Now, if you want to use the formulas, the first thing you need to do is you need to find the slope. You can get it from the graph if you have the graph, or you can calculate it with y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1 if you have 2 points that you're given. You're either going to use the slope-intercept or the point-slope formulas in order to find the equation, and then you simplify it down to whatever form I ask you. If I don't ask you for a particular form, then you can leave it in either one. Okay, so let's look at some examples. So write the slope-intercept form. So in this case, I am being specific about the way that I want it written. I want it in y equals mx plus b form. It has a slope of m of -1/2, and it passes through a point -8,5. Now, again, if you get stuck, you can always put this on a graph, but I'm going to show you how to do it this way. Okay, so when I prefer point slope to start with point slope, I always start with point slope and then I end in slope intercept. So it would be y minus y1 is equal to m times x minus x1. This is not the only way to do it, and I'll show you the other way too. So what we're going to do is we're going to replace our x and our y with the x and the y that we have, and the slope with the slope that we have. So we have y minus, and then our y is 5, equals m, which is -1/2, times x minus, and then -8. Now notice, I'm always saying y minus, and then I'm putting in the number. And then I say x minus, and then I put in the number, because I don't want you to make a mistake right here thinking that the negative of the -8 is the minus in the equation. The minus comes standard with the problem. One of the things that you can do that's helpful is you can write the equation and you can put blanks here. And then all you have to do is fill in. So you can set up the formula with everything you've got, and then you can go in and insert the numbers that you need. So go in and clean this up. Never leave double negatives. Okay, minus and negative, never leave that. So now it says to slope-intercept form. This, if you were asked to leave it in point slope form, this is what it would look like, just like this. Y minus 5 equals -1/2 times x plus 8. With the parentheses, it would look just like this. But I asked for it in slope-intercept form, so that means you need to simplify. So we're going to multiply the -1/2, so -1/2 x, and then -1/2 times 8 is -4. You still need to keep going to get it into slope-intercept, which is y equals. So you would add 5 to both sides, and you would get y equals -1/2 x plus 1. So we know that on a graph that would look like it would cross the y-axis at 1, and it would have a slope that's negative that would go down and to the right. It would cross at the y-intercept of 1. Now, just so you can see it here, I want you to see how you can do it with y equals mx plus b. So with y equals mx plus b, I don't like doing it this way simply because I think it has an additional step and I don't like having that additional step at the end. But it is possible, and so if this is what you're familiar with, you can do it this way. So y was 5, m is negative 1/2, x was negative 8, and then we need our y-intercept plus b. So we have 5 equals negative 1/2 times negative 8 is positive 4 plus b. Solve for b, that's the goal. That's the whole thing that we were doing, the whole purpose of what we were doing. And we get b is equal to 1. Then you have to go back to your equation again and rewrite it. Y equals negative 1/2 x plus 1. Again, you notice it's the same formula. And I know it doesn't seem like it's as ugly maybe as point slope, but the problem is it just feels weird to write it here using x and y, but then to write it here and not use the x and the y. And so students get really confused when they're doing it, when they're writing these, because you're going to want to plug in those x and y values, but we don't need to. We want notice how these cross, right? They're going to cross the x and the y axis, and so it has both variables. But I think it's easier to use point slope. That's my preference, but you can choose whichever one you're the most comfortable with. Okay, from here on, I'm going to use point slope just because I do think it is easier and you kind of end up with your answer. Now again, if you remember that in the beginning we said you have to have a slope and a point. Well, I don't have a point, I have 2 points. Well, that means you've got to find the slope. Well, we know how to calculate the slope between 2 points. So the slope is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Now be careful. Remember that once you pick a direction of how you're going to go, so I did 12 minus the negative 4, so I have to do 8 minus 4 so it maintains its direction and sign. Fix that double negative, you get 16 over 4, and so we have that the slope is 4. Now, once you have your slope, you need a point. It doesn't matter which one you use. You can use the 4 and negative 4 because it's smaller. You can use the 8 and the 12 because it's positive. I'm going to use the 8 and the 12 because it's positive. It doesn't matter which one you use. Now I use the formula. Y minus, and then y1 was 12, equals m times x minus, and the x value was 8. It asks for it in point slope form, so that's it. You're finished. That's all you have to do. Now I could do it with this 4 and minus 4. It would look like this. Y plus 4 or minus the negative 4 is equal to 4 times x minus 4. Now I know it doesn't look like those are the same, but they are. When you go through and you simplify it, you would see how it works out. So you can choose either point, it doesn't matter, and just be careful with your signs that that minus comes standard with the problem, right? Y minus and then x minus. Write the slope-intercept form. Again, that is y equals mx plus b of the equation of a line that has a y-intercept of 7 and passes through the point 4, negative 2. So it doesn't look like it because it looks kind of weird how it was written, but the y-intercept is the b. It is 7. b is 7. It passes through the point 4, negative 2, so we need there to be a slope. That's what we're missing. We know our y-intercept, so we know it's going to be something plus 7, so it's going to be y equals mx plus, it's going to be something x plus 7, but we need the slope. Now here's what you need to remember to be able to calculate the slope. One, you can get it off the graph if you need to. The other thing that you need to remember is that the y-intercept is where it crosses the y-axis, and so it will be at 0, 7. So you can calculate the slope between these 2 points. So the slope is equal to y2 minus y1, so 7 minus the negative 2 over 0 minus 4. Fix that double negative there. 7 plus 2 is 9. 0 minus 4 is negative 9/4. And so my slope is negative 9/4 x plus 7. Because that was the y-intercept, I didn't have to do anything else. I could have, but it would have been, it would have ended up being y minus 7 is equal to negative 9/4 x minus 0. And so that's why it ends up being the same. So just take that shortcut that I gave you, the y-intercept already. Okay. Now, another way that you might be given information is being given the information on a table. Now, you can use the table. In this case, I have 5 points. I only need 1, and then I need the slope. So we need to calculate the slope. So pick any 2 points. It doesn't matter. But y2 minus y1, 15 minus 11 is 4, and x2 minus x1, 2 minus 1 is 1, and so the slope is going to be 4 over 1, or just 4. Again, if you remember, this is 111. I know it doesn't look like we're used to seeing those coordinates, but it's still, they're ordered pairs. They're just in a table. So I found y2 minus y1, 15 minus 11 is 4, and then x2 minus x1, 2 minus 1 is 1. And so the slope is rise over run, so the slope is 4. Now, here you have a couple of options. You can pick a point that's on the line. Say, for instance, I want to use 111. So one option would be to do y minus 11 is equal to 4 times x minus 1. And I want it in slope-intercept form, so that's y equals mx plus b. So I would continue and finish out this problem so that it looks its proper form. Add 11 to both sides, and you get y equals 4x plus 7. That's one way to do it. Now, another way to do it is, if you notice, look at this table, it's minus 4, that's minus 4, that's minus 4. So every time that's 4, 4, 4. That's how we can tell that this is a straight line. So if I go back 4 more, then I have 11 minus 4, which is 7. And then I continue to go minus 1, minus 1, minus 1, minus 1. Minus 1 is 0. Well, that is the y-intercept. It's where it crosses the y-axis. It crosses the y-axis at 7. So I could have done some thinking over here and gotten my y-intercept and come up with y equals 4x plus 7 using that y-intercept. So you have a couple of options for how to do the problem. Sometimes it's easier if you can look at it and get that y-intercept. It just makes it nice and quick. Okay, you have 2 formats: y equals mx plus b, slope-intercept, and point slope. Y minus y1 is equal to m times x minus x1. And you always need 2 things to write the equation of a line. You need the slope, and you need the point that is on the line.